Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Januszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing today?
Doing great, Eric. How about you?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. It's
Have
been
a nice going on. So yeah, it's been a couple of weeks now. At least, was there snow on the ground the last time we did a podcast? I'm just kidding.
Not quite that long, but you've had a hectic few weeks with a new grandchild in the mix.
Yep, all kinds of things going on, and here we are, the middle of July already, and the AC's cranking up, and it's been so far a really nice summer. So
it has, and of course we've got a special guest today, Shell Sawyer. Shell is a financial advisor that helps women in divorce. And I know I'm simplifying that, but Shell, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on, Eric and Chip. I love this opportunity to get to talk to you guys. So my business name is Finding Strength with Shell. I help people navigate the divorce process and help them make good financial decisions for their future. So I'm a certified divorce financial analyst, a CDFA for short, a mediator, and also a divorce coach. So my specialty is walking women through the divorce process, holding their hand, making sure they know what they owe, what they own, and what would be good settlement decisions for them, and help them alleviate some of that fear of what their future is to hold.
Excellent. As you said, you're a certified divorce financial analyst, and I'm sure most of our audience, like myself, before having met you, didn't even know this was a thing.
Sure, yeah. Why would you know, right? Unless you went through a divorce. And maybe you don't even know then.
What is it that sets a certified divorce financial analyst apart from, say, your standard financial analyst or, a divorce mediator?
Sure. So the difference between any other divorce professional and myself is I have divorce specific financial expertise. So not only do I have a background in finance, I worked over 20 years in the financial services industry. I have my master's in accounting, but I've gone through training. So I know all about things that are special to divorce. And there's a lot when it comes to divorce around finances that most are unaware of. So that's what's different between me and like you mentioned, a financial analyst, right? Most financial advisors or analysts, they don't know what's really special about divorce, right? There's a CDFA course and it's an extensive training. It's almost like going for your CPA, but it's all about divorce. So yeah, that's what's different.
Now, you mentioned certified divorce financial analyst, mediator, and coach. It seems like the three are just so intertwined together and really designed to make things a whole lot easier for a couple going through this who are open to be listening to you, number one. But it's an education because, you're going into this stuff, and I'm sure that, all the time you run into animosity and, boom, fighting and all kind of stuff. Yeah. But they have all those three different things that you offer. And I imagine you probably perform all three of them during specific sessions because they all come into play so much. So they're so interrelated. It's really amazing what you're doing. And it's so logical.
You got that right, Chip. It all intertwines, right? The coaching helps with keeping the animosity at bay and not having, the confrontation, because I am skilled in that aspect. The mediation, I am trained to specifically do mediations, but my CDFA kind of wraps it all up because I'm giving them financial advice as they're going through it, right? So yes, they all intertwine regularly. Yep.
So now you did say that you specialized in helping women go through this. Mm-hmm. Other than just going through a divorce, how does a woman know, oh, she needs this specific service?
Yeah. So I went through my own divorce, right? And I'll just start with that. Like I felt like I needed somebody to just kind of walk with me on this journey and be able to ask questions too, because when you're going through mediation, um, it's kind of lonely. It really is. And you're sitting there with your soon to be ex-spouse and a mediator who can't give you legal advice or tell you that you're, usually they don't have the financial expertise, right? So I said, I have to help other women that are going through this to kind of be their guide, and help them, just even if they need to ask me questions, they want to prepare for their mediation. They have, certain fears, like there's a lot of fears out there for women, right? And that's why I kind of specialized in that, is that there a lot of them are worried, like, am I going to be okay after this is all done? And I help kind of ease that worry and give them some, you know, calming peace, to the whole divorce process that's very emotional.
So you're really combining a look at the numbers with dealing with the, well, roller coaster of emotions that someone goes through during a divorce.
They certainly
So
do. Yes.
what are some of the common questions that you've been asked?
So most people when they come to me initially are nervous. They're just in the initial contemplating stage, like, should I stay? Should I go? I mean, I can't answer that for anybody, but I can give them some, like, information and education around what they can expect. So some of those questions are just like, where do I even start? And I try to explain to them, like, normally they're coming from Connecticut, right? I can work in other states, and every state has their own laws, regulations. So, but I know I can't give legal advice, but I know enough to be able to help guide them and navigate. And we talk about, like, the different ways that so they don't even know, like, how can I get divorced? What do I need to do? What does my spouse need to do? And what does mediation even mean, right? Like, so if you're never gone through a divorce before, you might have heard the word mediation, but what does that even mean, right? Like, how do you do this? What exactly is the process for it? Well, they're
Yeah.
very common.
I mean, if you walk us through it, I mean, it's a whole lot better than getting a couple of lawyers involved. And what you're trying to do is just see if you can get them to agree on separate things without having, okay, I got to talk to my lawyer, you got to talk to my lawyer in the middle, and
Right.
so on and so forth. And, then whatever's left there, a lot of it's going to the lawyers too. So being
Yes.
agreeable to going through that process and then getting guided through that obviously shows a lot of benefit. And I would imagine that sometimes it's a lot harder for you to talk people into that, but a lot of other people say, wow, I didn't even know this happened. And then thank you afterwards for having them avoid having to go through all the legalese.
Exactly. I think the first question that people, or the first even thought they have in mind, is I have to get an attorney when you're going through a divorce, right? And that's not necessarily true, right? If you think that you can come to an agreement amicably, right? And you think you might be able to, even if you just try it, you can get through the majority of it. I actually have never had anybody not get through anything yet, but because once they start, it's kind of like a business meeting. It's like, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about these things, and there's not going to be any, animosity or confrontation, and we're just going to work through this process. But you hit that nail on the head too, Chip, because it is a lot cheaper to go the mediation route, especially with someone like me. I won't say you don't, I charge a lot less than an attorney. I'll just be blunt about that, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not charging the prices that they charge. So I can't do the filing of the paperwork, but you can get through a lot of it with me. So we'll keep the cost down. And that's one of the big benefits. People like to hear that part.
That's where the coach.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because divorce can get very expensive when you're paying for attorneys to navigate and, negotiate for you. It get very
Right.
expensive.
Now, of course, there are some red flags that get waived where you see, all right, this particular couple would need need attorneys.
Yes.
They're not speaking. The animosity is already high. However, even if you're going through a divorce with attorneys, there's still an advantage to using your services on the financial side, isn't there?
Yes, yes. Especially, and that's why I say with a woman, right? So if you you have an attorney, you both have attorneys, but you need somebody to kind of, like I said before, like help walk you through this. Like that's one of my specialties, is actually like walking people through the divorce process. And I'm kind of on the sideline helping you with your finances. From understanding your finances to navigating whatever you need to do, preparing for your meetings, how to negotiate effectively. What does a good settlement option look like for you? And understanding what those short and long-term implications are to the decisions that you're making. Because there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of tax implications you can get yourself into. So maybe you think you're coming to a 50-50 agreement with your soon-to-be husband or wife, but maybe you have to pay taxes on something that they don't. And all of a sudden, it's not 50-50 anymore, but you don't realize that until after everything's all said and done. So knowing ahead of time what could possibly come up in the long run is really beneficial to you. And I actually help people like do budgets for themselves too, for their new lifestyle. So helping them prepare that and knowing like, what is your new life going to look like? Can you afford it? Are you prepared? And being with them the whole way.
So, whether or not a woman is going through a divorce, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that women need to understand about their finances?
Yeah, they should be involved in the conversation all the time. And that's true whether it's a husband or a wife, right? Or a couple. The couple should be talking through their finances. So often people get to this stage and they don't know what even their finances are. Sometimes they don't even know how much does their spouse make, right? What's our mortgage payment like? They don't know that. So being ahead of the curve and kind of understanding that, and that's something I can help them with too. How do you get that information, right? How do you have those conversations with your spouse? Should be, regularly, just knowing like and having those discussions about even the little things, like what do our expenses look like every month? Being a part of that. That's like a great thing to be in front of. And I know no one likes to talk about divorce. No one likes to anticipate it, but it is reality in today's day and age. So just preparing yourself for that, yeah, is so helpful to anyone, not just women.
Now, realistically, according to all of the statistics, one of the biggest reasons for a divorce does actually come down to money. That's one of the factors that couples fight about. And
Yep.
wouldn't having both parties completely privy to what's going on with their finances actually alleviate some of that pressure?
It would. You're right, Eric. It would. I mean, maybe though you have somebody that's like a spendthrift, right? And you have someone that really likes to like save their dollars and not spend them. That could be an issue, even if you were communicating,
Sure.
right? Or if people spend money and they're not communicating with the other spouse, right, about what they actually are spending, big ticket items, right? That can really come into play as well. So, I mean, communication is always key, and trying to work together, that would help.
So, are there common issues that you've seen on a regular basis that this is where the problem has come up and now you guys have to all work together to overcome it?
Um, well, once they usually come to me, they're kind of decided that they're not gonna try to overcome anything,
Well,
right?
no, but
Ready to
they
move
still
on.
have to overcome the issue in order to figure out who's getting what.
Yes, yes. So one of the big items for divorce, right, is always the home. And I would say because it's something that most people maybe can't afford on their own, right? So they bought this home together. There's possibly two incomes contributing to this. And two people that are actually contributing to the household too, right? Like all the things that you have to do in it. And then they get to the part of divorce and it's like, can I afford this on my own? Um, Women tend to be very emotionally attached to their house, whether they raise their children there or whether it's a place of refuge for them and they feel like they really want to stay. Um, they don't like to move their kids, even though kids are probably the most resilient out of anyone in the divorce process. They really can adapt well, and sometimes they even like to move, right? So it's probably like more of an excuse, but women can't usually afford the home after everything is said and done, and it gets them into a predicament because 1 in 5 women wind up in poverty after divorce, and that's like a pretty
Wow.
high statistic.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of it has to do with being stuck on some of the emotions that come with divorce, like owning the home, because you have to give up so much, right? When you decide, I mean, I think it's true for a husband too, right? It's not, I'm not trying to like just focus in on the wife, but if they're not making as, it's still true that women don't make as much as men in the workforce, right? So they're going to try to afford this home with maybe some alimony, but it's not going to be like, your $2 from what you were getting when you were married.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to do this, right? But the things that they need to think about is it's not just about the mortgage, it's not just about the taxes and the interest. It's about the maintenance that you have to put into a home, it's about the landscaping, everything that goes along with it, including the things that you have to give up in order to keep it, like vacation. Like most of
Right.
us like to go on vacation, but what if you keep that house and you're not able to go for 5 years? Are you good with that? Would you rather keep the home, or maybe in today's market, you might want to sell it, you know?
Yeah, and current conditions do change,
Yeah.
and they do have a big effect on
Hmm.
the decisions made. I mean, certainly
Right.
the interest rates, mortgage rates, inflation rates that are
Hmm.
all going on now, that's going to change decisions for some people.
It is. Yeah. And even rent prices, right? They've gone
Yeah.
up dramatically. I think 11%, that was the last time I checked, rent was up in the last year. That's high for people, right? Thinking about, and it's so volatile.
Sure,
Um
especially since wages are only up about 5%.
yeah. I don't know how we afford our lifestyles. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
so I
like,
imagine a big part of what you're doing through your coaching is helping people your clients put together a budget for moving ahead. So you make sure that, not only does the divorce go financially fine, but moving ahead, they're all set. And I imagine that part of your services in a lot of instances is ongoing after the divorce is done, right?
yes, yes. I've helped a lot of people just figuring that piece out. Like, what is this going to look like now? How do I do it? Right? Because maybe they've never even, managed their finances or paid bills, right? Prior to the divorce. So, what does it look like now for them? That's a big part of what I do. Yeah. Mhm.
So, in terms of budgeting, have you seen any things that uh, come up, periodically that have to be budget for that actually take people by surprise? Like they never considered this because maybe the spouse was taking care of it.
Not the majority of it. No, I mean, Yeah, I mean, just knowing what they're like, when you look at the bottom line, I think that what is most surprising to people is when they look at the bottom line and see how much they're actually spending
Yes.
a month, right? Because so I usually do it like we look at the monthly bills, right? Um, Even if they calculate, maybe you pay a water bill quarterly or anything, I break it down into what is it going to look like monthly, right? And they're shocked at how much they
Yes.
actually spend versus how much they're making, right? What's the difference? Or do you have any disposable income left over? Most people are really surprised at that, how much they don't have to save. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's very few people that actually look at their complete budget, taking everything into account. They
Mhm.
may know what they spend on food, or they may know what they spend on entertainment, but
Right.
toss in the mortgage payment, toss in insurance and water bills and
Yeah.
electric bills and all of that.
Your car
It-
taxes that you only get once a
yes,
year. Yeah. Yeah. And they're
property
surprised.
taxes. Yeah, it,
Yeah.
it comes
Mhm.
as a surprise.
Yeah, it really does. Hmm.
Yeah. This is where your accounting degree comes in there. I have an accounting degree too. You teach
You,
everybody how to put together their own personal income statements and whatever. So obviously
Mhm.
the most important thing is to really identify the expenses by going through everything you're doing right now. But then
Yeah.
you really know what you can and can't afford. But also, I would imagine that it also um, influences people to maybe go out and do something better for their top line too. I would imagine that.
Yes.
And also,
Yeah.
where you encourage people, look, there's other
Mhm.
opportunities for you to do this kind of thing. And
Right.
obviously, being a networker and so on and so forth, there's people out there that you may know that might be able to help people out that way. Because obviously, the best way to handle things is to shoot for to do something that will bring more in on the top line. And obviously,
Right.
psychologically, that's a whole lot better too.
Right.
The whole piece of the puzzle. So,
Yeah. It keeps your emotions down, right? Like just being a little calmer, knowing that you can do it. Right.
yeah,
I do network with people who are like, I think you were mentioning like career coaches, right? That
Yes.
can help people figure out something that might be more lucrative for them, right? Than what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do workshops where we train people on knowing where their money's going and how they can keep more of it. And it's amazing how many people don't know simple things that can save them a lot of money. And one of
Mm.
the biggest ones we always talk about is learn to cook and learn to shop, because I can put together a whole dinner for four, steak, side dishes, the whole thing, for a lot less than I can take the family to McDonald's.
I'm coming to your house.
There, it's
That sounds good.
it's his
so
no.
people need to learn these things.
Yeah, you're right. Is it teach a person to fish? Is that
Right?
the
Yes.
saying? Yeah.
Give a person a fish,
Yeah.
they'll eat for a day. Teach a
Yes.
person to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime.
There you go. There it is. Thank you, Eric.
So we're coming up on the end of our time.
That
So
went really quick.
what? Yes. So
Yeah.
what do you think is the most important thing that someone needs to know if they're considering a divorce?
The most important thing is that you're going to get through it. And with support system like myself, I can help you get there, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
All right. And if somebody wants to get more information on your services, how can they find out more?
Okay, so my website is www.findingstrengthwithshell.com. And yeah, my Finding Strength with Shell, that's my company name. I'm also on Facebook too.
All right. Well, we're so glad you could come on. This is very important information for people to have. Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think the combination certified divorce and financial analyst, mediator, and coach kind of says it all. I mean, this is something that you need to get through it. But as far as the takeaway goes, for those of you out there listening who fortunately are not going through this, the message is just get a handle on your finances and your top line and make it work for you right now. So if it happens, it happens. But if not, your life is going okay.
Yes, that's a good takeaway too.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big takeaway is know what your situation is. Yeah, there's the old saying, knowledge is power. If you know your finances, know what's coming in, know what's going out, you're in a much better space, regardless of whether or not you're going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm. You got that right, Eric.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode of Success Showcase at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.